Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Daugherty.
And I'm Karyn Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Karyn here with Kelly, and today we are welcoming Janine McDonald as we are exploring the letter R for rebuilding. So, Janine, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we get very excited to have people on. I think this one in particular, Kelly and I were saying, is just such a practical approach with some, things that are also very emotional. And so I think this is certainly a topic that's going to apply to a lot of people. So Janine, I'm just going to jump right in and read your bio. We figure it's a really good place to start for people to right away get to know who you are and what you do. So Janine is a decluttering specialist and organizing philosopher, best-selling author, and international speaker who helps people transform their lives by creating clarity in their homes, workspaces, and minds. Founder of Clear the Clutter Now and author of the best-selling Clear the Clutter Now, Streamline Your Life by Doing Just 3 Things. Janine is passionate about showing people that decluttering is not about tidying up. It's about freedom, confidence, and well-being. Her warm, empathetic style has resonated with audiences worldwide, sharing her holistic approach to decluttering and organizing. And I'll just jump right in, Janine. When we were talking beforehand, you were talking about the idea of mental freedom, which I think is just also such a good approach and philosophy. So, Janine, just jumping right in, with the work that Kelly and I do, we are both working with people who have lost a loved one. And a big conversation that comes up for people is the idea of what I always say is the stuff, which could be really just about anything, any part of their belongings, from the very smallest things to very big things, possibly furniture, things like that in the home. I've had people that have struggled to get rid of a pill box or, something that seems small or otherwise, not that important. So maybe you could start us off by telling us a little bit about your philosophy and the approach to dealing with some of this.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. So obviously it's a very, very distressing time for people. And the thing is, everybody processes in a different way. So that's where it's finding out about the stories behind the things. Because you mentioned there about somebody wants a little pill box. And a lot of the time it is the small things that creates the biggest memories. And by looking at the stories, by having those memories, by looking at passing things on, sometimes passing things on before somebody dies. It may be, if it's sudden, then obviously we can't do that, but it's passing that heritage on, passing that story on, and looking at the stuff can be really, really overwhelming. And one interesting thing, as I heard in your last episode of your podcast, about families helping out. And actually, sometimes, families aren't the best people to help out. One of my clients she'd lost her son. So he was grown up, but she'd lost her son through tragic circumstances. And her nieces and nephews were trying to help. And I sat down with her on her bed and she just went, Janine, she said, I love you helping me. I was like, why is that? She said, you listen to me. You listen to where I got something from or why I've got it. She said, my family just tell me what to do. So I think it's really important to make sure that the decision making is with the person who's grieving. And it may be that time is to sort out right now, or it may be 12 months' time. And again, you spoke about this, your love languages, it's knowing the person's love languages as well, to know whether acts of service are a love language. So what would be right for somebody may not be right for somebody else. So it may be that you're going through belongings with somebody, and actually an act of service would be, which charity shop would you like me to take these items to? Which thrift store would you like me to take them to? And I always ask that question, if I'm actually taking things away, do they have a preferred charity? Because that's also them knowing that they're continuing to do the good of the person who's passed away.
Definitely. So, Janine, I'm curious just because if the listeners have been listening, they know that my dad died. It will be a year in November. And so back in January, my sisters and I had to meet up in Florida, and we sold his condo very quickly, thankfully, even with hurricane damage. So we were very grateful, but we had to go through his things. And so I set up a spreadsheet of all of like the furniture, and we had first choice, second choice, third choice, and like to like kind of help figure out like what furniture, who wanted what. And thankfully we didn't argue on any of the furniture itself, but some of the little things, there was definitely. So what steps would you tell somebody that's just starting out with this process? Like what should you do first?
It's asking that question, if anybody would like anything that belonged to the person who's passed away. I think that is super, super important, because it helps with knowing that there's something in particular. So it may be that the person who's left, it may be that they think, oh, well, yeah, we don't want that anymore. I just don't want that. But actually, it's a core memory of one of the children. But the parent didn't know that. So to ask the question of any friends and family who are left, what would you like to remember them by? And it may be an item of furniture. It may be something tiny. It may be a plant pot. It's just something they then get the opportunity to have something to remember that person by. I mean, your spreadsheet, ever so practical. And yes, that would suit some families. Not all of them. But some families would go around and put little red dots on things. They'd have little stickers, and all the family would come round, and then each family member would be designated a different coloured sticker. And then they would go around the home and put stickers on things that they wanted. But then the difficulty can come sometimes when there's multiple stickers on one item. And that's when conversations need to happen. And it may be that the item moves around different houses at certain times after a certain length of time. Or it may be, actually, well, you also like this item and you like that item. Which one would you prefer? Is it one or the other? You can't have both, because somebody else wants the other item. So looking at it that way. There's also, like you say, doing an inventory of what, especially if both partners have passed and you're having to go and empty a property, then it's to make a list of everything that's there. Because not all families are close by now. You know, there's lots of families live overseas and they can't get back, but they do still want to know what's happening. So to be kept in the loop, it's either doing things by video call. Oh, look what we found. And have that moment of reflection. Give yourself permission to sit and grieve whilst you're going through the things. Give yourself permission to grieve whilst you're on the phone to somebody and you're talking about the stuff. The clothes hold an awful lot of emotion. And sometimes you think, well, why clothes? But it's because the memories are associated with the outings that they've been on, the events they've been to. They always wore that hat from the middle of fall until the middle of spring. It was never off the head. You know, so it may be that somebody just wants the hat and they want to hang it on the wall so that they can see it every day. And that's one thing I say to people is that if you have something that has belonged to a relative and you love it, and I always give an example of, say, a tea set. or a mug that you've got those memories attached to, but either it can't go in the dishwasher or it's chipped and it's just at the back of the cupboard. So let's look at repurposing it. We can make it into a bird feeder, hang it in the garden, so that every day when you go out or from the window, you can see it and those happy memories come back. And you've not pushed those memories away to the back of the cupboard.
I love that idea of repurposing or, kind of putting it out there in a different way so that it could still be enjoyed. I think sometimes just the sheer volume of what people need to sort through can feel really, really overwhelming. And I think sometimes we're almost fortunate if we know for sure. Like when my stepdad died, he had this little car on his keychain. And right away I'm like, I absolutely want that. That's on my keychain now. I love it. It's just this little tiny thing that, is always with me. So that was like easy. But then there's certain things that we may not be as sure about. And one thing that I hear from people is that they worry about not knowing what the meaning had to their loved one. Like, maybe we're talking about their clothing. And yes, absolutely. That's the sweater that my mom wore every Christmas, for example. But maybe there's some other clothing or maybe there's some, things around the house that maybe they picked up on a trip or they got. And I think sometimes people are afraid of getting rid of something that meant something to their loved one and not really being able to make decisions. So, how do you help guide people when it's not as clear what they want or don't want to do with it?
If it's something that has been memorable to the person who's passed away, but not necessarily to the rest of the family, then I suggest looking at other places. So, and I don't use the phrase, we need to get rid of that. It's look at, let's see, what can we pass on for somebody else to enjoy?
Hmm.
So, for instance, if I had a client who had lots of old maps and lots of old tram coins, and the coins went to the tram museum because they'd come down through the family, but they'd no memories for her, but we didn't just want to throw them away, so they went to the tram museum. The maps, the newer ones went to a craft club to be made into paper flowers and other items, and the older maps went back because they were handwritten maps. So they went back to the archives of the Automobile Association. So you know then that is spreading the love, if you will. And also you can donate things like that, and it may be football memorabilia or baseball. Then that memorabilia can be shown in their sports clubs, and a little plaque can go next to it if they were an avid fan. Kindly donated by the family of. That's there then for such a long time. And you know that not only the family who perhaps weren't that bothered about, the thousands of programmes or magazines or whatever it was, but other people are finding the beauty in that and more people are enjoying it. And I think it's looking at how can we look at things in a different way. So who else can enjoy these things? And that sometimes gives you a better feel-good factor, really, than thinking, oh, should I be keeping this or should I not? If you're not sure, then by passing it on to somebody like that means that you can still go and see it as and when you want, but it's not taking up space in your own home.
Before we jump back into the episode, we want to share something that's really close to both of us. The Grief Experience, Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection, is not only a powerful book, it's actually how we met.
We were two of the 25 authors who came together to write this collection. Each chapter offers a personal story about grief, different relationships, different circumstances, different ways people try to make sense of life after someone they love died. Readers tell us these stories feel honest, compelling, and surprisingly reassuring. Many say it helped them feel less alone in what they're carrying.
What makes this book unique is that it doesn't stop at the story. Each chapter ends with a practical tool, something the reader can use right away. One reviewer said the suggestions at the end of the chapter became a lifeline when they weren't sure what to do next. If you're looking for grounded support, or you're a therapist wanting to understand better the reality of grief from many angles, this book offers connection, clarity, and real guidance, not cliches.
You can find The Grief Experience on Amazon, and we'd love to get your feedback.
So, Janine, what about the people? Because I think I've seen this firsthand. My family, also with a lot of my clients, is wanting to keep everything that belonged to their loved one. Like, and things, I always ask, like, well, does it bring you joy or did it bring them joy? And if it brought them joy, like you said, like, is that something that if it doesn't bring you joy, do you want to keep it or not? Like, I always encourage my clients to take pictures of things and maybe they make a scrapbook of those pictures of the things that they donate. So that way they still have that memory. But there's a lot of people that want to just hoard it all
Yeah,
and
there
just keep it
are.
all because that's I think that's their connection. That's what they're trying to do is stay connected to their loved one that way. So how do you handle situations that they don't want to give away to someone else? They don't want to donate. They want to keep it all.
And it's so difficult. It is, because by wanting to keep it all, you're cramming it all into your home, which means that then you're tripping over everything. You then become more anxious because you've not got the space. You then start getting more frustrated and more snappy with everybody else who lives in the house. So, and it tends to have a rollerball, a snowball effect. So I would try and suggest very gently that you don't actually need all of this. And that whilst you appreciate that there is a lot of stuff, that the memories are in you, not in the things. So again, like yourself, I would recommend taking photographs, making a scrapbook, putting them in a photograph album, having it, stored on the computer, having it in two separate places, and then just in case one gets lost, the other one is still there. And to go through them every now and then. Or it may be even that they've already got photographs of the person with that thing, so they don't need the photograph of the thing, because the memory is actually the event that happened, not the physical item. So I'd talk to them again about the stories behind the things and what their story is with the item. And if the story with the item is that, well, actually, no, I just want to keep it, then it's, well, what benefit is it bringing you? What love is it bringing you? How much do you love it? Is it something that you think, oh, if I saw that in an antique sale or if I saw that in the shop, yes, I'd buy it. And generally it's, no, I wouldn't. In which case, again, it's that, well, other people would benefit from it. How would you feel if another family who perhaps haven't got much would benefit from having that cupboard, would benefit from having a wardrobe that would tide them over? Because there are certainly some big bulky items that we have. And sometimes we've become so materialistic that it's, yes, I need that, I need that, I need that, I need that. And we don't need that much. It's just accepting things into your home that you are going to use, that have a purpose, and that when you look at it, it makes you smile. And if it doesn't cover those three things, then it's time to release, let it go, and pass it on for somebody else to get the benefit and enjoyment of. Yeah.
Oh, Janine, you're making me think of all of these bins that's on the other side of this wall from my dad's house that I haven't done anything with. Oh, goodness.
Well, and isn't that part of it too, I guess, that maybe can this happen in phases? I mean, that's one thing. Like
Oh,
sometimes
definitely.
the timelines can be so different for people. Like, I think, Kelly, in your situation, you really had a very specific, with the condo is going to be sold, we've got to get everything out of there. So you were really kind of on the clock with
Yeah.
that. Where some people are, living in this space where all this stuff is, and there may not be that sense of urgency. But I find when that's the case, or even it's their parents' house across town and nobody's planning on selling it yet, but they know this is something they have to do. I have suggested sometimes people do things in steps. Like, let's say it's within your living space, and maybe you kind of experiment with it at one point, taking some things out of the closet, putting them in a bag. Maybe they stay in the garage for a little bit just to see how it feels. Like, can we do things like that? And is that still okay to do it that way? To maybe do it slowly? If, like Kelly, maybe packed a few things up, closed the boxes, and was like, all right, I need to wait until I'm a little more ready, to deal with some of that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And some people, I mean, when my dad passed away, it will be 8 years in November. And after he'd passed away and after we'd had the funeral, my mum it was almost like she was a locust going through the house. It was like, shoo. And I felt like, what's happening? It's too much. I can't deal with this. But when she explained it, it all made sense in that she said, your dad's passed away. He's left us with so much stuff. We've got all his art materials. We've got 20 years worth of school governor notes, paper notes. We've got 30 odd years worth of teaching equipment and books and things like that, and all his artwork. She said, if I pass away, I don't want you to have this burden. So it's almost she had a sense of her own mortality, but actually it did make sense. And I worked with her on that. I worked with her in that, we did it in sections almost. So we looked at his clothes, but we didn't do his ties. My dad was very much a shirt and tie person, and he had very funky ties. So we didn't do his ties because that was too sentimental. So we did his other clothes first. And then we separated them into the different places that they could go. Then we almost moved on to another category, which was his art supplies. And the local school had created an award in his honour. So we donated a lot of the supplies there. But then there's times when someone may not have a sense of urgency for whatever reason, in that the property's not being sold, like you said, or that they want to just carry on as they are because they aren't ready. And they won't know they're ready until they know they're ready. And that's when having somebody who is quite holistic, who's very empathetic, will just sit with them and wait and have that conversation, but in a loving conversation way, rather than, oh, come on, we need to start sorting this out, because that doesn't help anybody. And when that person knows is the right time, they will then start to work through it. And they might need support to work through that. But then if it's looking at a house being sold and, say, the surviving person downsizing, you've still got a deadline there because you want to get the house on the market. But then it's looking at the different things to take with them, because they've not only having to declutter and organise the person who's passed, their belongings, it's now looking at joint belongings and their own belongings as well in order to downsize. So everything's got a slightly different approach. But again, it's knowing the person. So if you're looking at doing it in stages, but the house needs to be sold, but you're not ready to go through everything, then some people do rent a storage unit. But what we have to be careful with there is that it doesn't just stay in a storage unit and the payments just go out, because then that's just empty money going out. So what you could do is say, right, okay, so we get 8 weeks half price storage, okay? So every week or every 3 days, whichever, or on a Friday, I'm going to go to the storage unit and I'm going to bring a box back or 2 boxes back. And I'm going to go through those 2 boxes. And that way it becomes a role or a job, if you will, in that, right, a designated day and time, that's when I go to the storage unit. And you can sometimes detach yourself a little bit that way. So take them from the storage unit, bring them back home, or sort them at the storage unit. And then by that, it's doing it in more bite-sized pieces. And it's also giving you time for reflection. It may be one box that you bring out, might take you the rest of the week to go through. But it might be a box that you bring back and it's like, nope, 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 because it's all paperwork. And then you have your different piles shredding and recycling. So, and it depends what comes out of the storage unit as to how quick that process is. But I would give yourself a sense of purpose and a goal really to work to say, right, okay, by the end of this half price period, we're going to have it done. What help do I need? What help am I willing to accept? And reach out. And again, it may be that family's not the best option.
Yeah.
Other times it may be, if there's a box of paperwork coming back, it may be that you can sit with a friend and just go through that whilst you're watching TV together and having, a drink, and make it a social event as well, which I know sometimes sounds a bit weird. Like, well, that's a bit weird, having a
No.
social event doing that. But actually, it can be quite fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it can. I'm sure it can. One thing I want to ask about, and really this is more probably generationally going to be different. I know my parents took so many pictures,
Oh, yes.
and people probably take more pictures now, but back then we printed them. So my parents in their home, there is boxes and boxes. My stepdad especially loved taking pictures. And it was always funny because he always said, nobody's going to even know I was here because I'm the one taking all the pictures. Meanwhile, it came time for his funeral and we're like, there's plenty of pictures of you here. We got plenty of pictures. But what do we do with the pictures are so hard to get rid of and
Yeah.
yet so impractical to keep, especially back then when I mean, I don't know, maybe this is just my own, but I feel like people just took pictures of everything, their cars and their houses. And, it wasn't always just pose pictures of people, like vacations and fireworks and stuff, because it was just kind of fun. And you printed out the pictures, you made photo albums and all that. But what is a practical suggestion that we could have for pictures?
With the actual physical photographs, I mean, you're right
The
in saying that we
physical
take
photograph,
so
yeah.
many digital photographs now.
Right.
And one thing that we need to look at for going forward is, if I pass away, how will my kids find all my photographs?
Right.
So that's a concern that we need to address for going
Right.
forward. But
Right.
looking
True.
back, when we have the physical photos, yes, especially when they're in albums, they take up so much room. So you can actually, again, sit with family or friends, go through them. Any that you haven't got a clue where they're of, or it may be blurry, or you're just so grainy that you don't know what it is, they can go. It's the ones with people in that become a very personal, I was going to say quest, in that you don't like throwing away photographs with people in because you don't want to feel like you're throwing them away. So I'd go through and select. So again, process of elimination. So looking at all the blurry ones, okay, yeah, we're not going to look at those again. Any that you think, do you know what, yes, we are going to look at those again. They'd be really good for passing down to the kids. If you can, write down what the photograph is, who it is, where it is, and the date, if you can. And then there's an option to scan them in. So you can actually scan them into your computer, and then you could create a photo book of them. So you've then got a condensed book with photographs and a little description, if possible, of who it is and where it was taken. And then what I've had to do before now is, it wasn't a photograph, but it was a chalk drawing that my dad had done on my daughter's wall. Now, he became very, very poorly and he wasn't able to finish that, so he painted a canvas instead. And when we decorated her room, I was like, oh, I can't paint over it. I can't do it. So I cut it out and then peeled the rest of the wallpaper off, ready for the new one to go on. And I found it a few weeks ago, and I was doing my own decluttering, and I sat on the floor and I cried. I feel myself getting emotional now. And a friend was with me, and I said, I know I don't need it because I've got a photograph of it. I've also got the memory of it. We've got the canvas of it. I said, could you take it for me, please? I said, I'm okay with you throwing it in the bin. I just can't do it myself. So that's an option as well,
Yeah.
is asking somebody else to dispose of them. And it may be that they think, well, I don't really want anybody's face on there. So there are options that are shredders that do photographs, but for somebody else to do that, because it can be quite personal when you're actually going through them. But for me, the best option is to scan the ones that you want to keep, put them into a photo book so that you can still look at them. You can still look at them with friends and family. And then you've still got them on your computer as well. Make sure you have them in a separate folder and that it's marked up properly with who it is and the dates.
Oh, good idea.
And I also, my sister, because I was going to ask about the pictures as well. So Karen and I was right on track with that. And there were so many. My dad also had all of his brother. When his brother died, he inherited all of his pictures. So we don't even know who a lot of these pictures are. Um, but they're very old. I mean, these are probably from the early 1900s, some of these pictures, and
Oh,
we
wow.
don't know who they
Okay.
are. But my sister found a company that you buy a box from them and you put as many pictures as you can that fit, and then they scan them in for you, so you don't have to do that. We haven't gotten there yet because we haven't gone through the pictures yet, because it just feels so overwhelming. And she lives in another state, and so
Yeah.
like she's got them all. And when we were together down at her house, it's just too much. It feels so
Yeah,
overwhelming
it
to
is
do
too much.
all of it.
Yeah, it is. And that's when it comes to, if she's got them all at her house, then again to go through them with the process of elimination
Mhm.
and to get them scanned on. But whilst you're doing that, you need to think about that it's generally a cost per scan, or it may be as many in the box as you can.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it
if
was
it's
a
as many
box.
in
So
the
we bought
box
the
as you
biggest box.
can, then yes, you could put them all in, but then sometimes you think, well, actually, I'm going to need another box now because I've still got some. So go through them, and any that you think, actually, we really don't need a copy of that one, so that one can come out. Then you can send them off for scanning. They'll scan them all in, and you'll get them probably via a download to go
Yeah.
onto your computer. Any physical photographs, then, certainly from that period, there are collectors out there who collect old photos. So you could then either donate them or even sell them. You've still got the memory, you've still got the scan of the photograph. So with the money that you get from the physical photographs, if this is something that you wanted to do, you could then actually do something in their memory with that money, whether that be an outing, whether it be a family get together, whether it be, planting a tree. you can actually do something with the money from that to do good and have that
Oh,
remembrance.
Good idea.
if you've connected with our grief framework on the podcast, you'll find even more support inside our private, free Facebook community. Each week, we'll walk through grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding with prompts and practical tools you can use right away. It's a place to connect with others who are on their own trail through grief. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook and join us. I love that idea. And I think that's a perfect segue into our Celebrate Their Life segment. So, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, the Celebrate Their Life is really being able to help honor our loved ones. How can we continue that connection we have with them? How can we honor them? And I love that idea of like taking the money you make from that and doing like a tree or a bench somewhere or something like that. I love that idea. But what are some other ideas? And I would be curious what maybe ways you have celebrated your dad's life.
With my dad, we have each got one of his ties because he was very famous for his ties, but also we've all got a painting that he did. And the one I've got is a painting of St Mark's Square in Venice, and he's painted it from a photograph that I took when I was there. So for me, that's that's a really beautiful memory. My mum has got paintings of his around the house. We actually, at his funeral, did a gallery around the church of not all his paintings because we had so many, but lots and lots of different paintings. We then actually sold all those paintings were for sale to raise money for the Heart Foundation and for cancer research. And then I'd actually created some Christmas cards from some of the images as well. And we printed them out. I stuck them all, made all the cards, put them into little cellophane wrappers, and we donated a batch of them to the cancer unit at the hospital for them to sell to raise funds. One thing that I've done for a client who very sadly lost her daughter, but had lots and lots of her clothes, was that you can create a memory bear, but also you can create a memory blanket. And that's where you can take the little squares of the clothes and put them all together, but then you can use that as a story blanket for their siblings. But then you've still got something really close that you can have. You're watching TV in an evening, you can just pull it over your knees and you've got them there with you. And then again, that can be passed down through generations as well. So yeah, so for us, we've each got a tie of his. We've all got a painting of his as well. And we celebrate his birthday every year. So we get together, we sing happy birthday, we have a cake, we talk about the funny things that he did, the daft things that he did, and we still talk about him. We still keep his memory alive in what he would enjoy doing, things that we see. It would be, and we had a little name for him. He was called Bamper. So my children called him Bamper. And they have some of his art things as well, his paints. And when they do painting with his paints, it's like, this is what Bamper would have done.
Yeah. Yeah, Janine, your dad and my stepdad sound a lot alike. My stepdad painted a lot at the end of his life, also had a lot of ties that my husband now has, and he's a teacher, and that he wears. So, it is nice just, as you said, kind of keeping them in our space, I think,
Yeah.
which is what's interesting about the stuff is that, sometimes it can be overwhelming, but then it does also have the potential to be, a small reminder or something that we have close by. One woman that I worked with said that she tried to create the essence of her loved one by just having a few of their things in a small space. And, that's what we're trying to do. We want to have those reminders. We would like to have the idea of having them nearby.
Yeah.
So as we're sort of, wrapping some of this up, I wonder for someone who's listening right now, and maybe trying to think about what to do with the stuff wherever they are in this process. Is there an actionable task, something that you could make a suggestion on to help someone feel, maybe to get a little bit more motivated or to feel more comfortable with the cleaning out?
Yeah. I When I get overwhelmed with myself, because clutter has been part of my journey as well, in that I say just three things. So it's don't tackle everything, do just three things. And then it's looking at it in that, yes, what does that mean to you? Those three things. And just have them in front of you and looking at them. You don't need to go rooting for the three things. It's just whatever is closest by of theirs, because then you've eliminated a level of decision making. And then you go to those three things. And is it something that you can see and that you want to have on display because it shows your love for them? Or is it something that you think somebody else would like? Or is it something that you can donate and pass on for somebody else to enjoy and give it a new lease of life? So that's what
Yeah,
my
great
advice would be.
suggestion. Great suggestion. And one thing you said today that I absolutely loved, I'm going to remember this, but if you're ever feeling really stuck, and there's no special meaning or anything attached one way or the other, it's like, would I go to the store and buy this? Like, that's a great thing to put in your head, because probably a lot of times it's not necessarily, you know, but that does help guide you. And that's what you need sometimes, is that guide. So
It
Janine, this has
does.
been
It
so,
does.
so helpful. Um, how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to work with you or learn more about what you're doing?
So I'm on all the socials as Janine McDonald and Clear the Clutter Now. So that's my business name. And my strapline is Clear Home, Clear Head, Clear Heart, because I believe that everything has a knock on effect to the other. So it's Janine McDonald, Clear the Clutter Now on all of the socials. And, I'm happy to answer any questions at all. If you'd like to connect with me, pop me a question. That's great. I will come back and I will respond to you. And I also have a Facebook group, which is a community where I'll put hints and tips in there on general decluttering. I'll have some lives in there. Yeah, all different bits and bobs in there if anybody wanted to join my community. And I support people both in home and virtually as well.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, because it's the cleaning out, but it's also the rebuilding, and where we go
Yeah.
from here, which is exactly what we're talking about with all this. So Janine, there was so much helpful stuff here today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for all that you shared. Um, Kelly, thank you. And thank you to everybody. We'll
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you again.
Thanks for joining us on the Grief Ladies.
Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work.
If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.